To our meeting of the Neighborhood Resiliency Project Advisory Committee, otherwise known as NERPAC. And we're happy to welcome everybody today. We do have all of our members present. We have Commissioner Alex Fernandez present. Thank you for coming. We have Vice Mayor Dominguez's aide, Aaron Soriano. Thank you. Amazing, wonderful staff and our members. So thanks to everybody for being here. The first order of business is to approve the minutes of the April 17th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve these minutes? Ron will move it. Who will second it? Neil will second it. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that part was easy. Our agenda for today begins with the First Street project update, because we did originally have Commissioner Fernandez as an official guest, but now he is an official guest without being an official participant. And this is how we will also, any commissioner who wishes to come will come this way in the future. Amy, if you want to make any comments with respect to that, that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Also, I wanted to ask everybody to project and speak up at this meeting so that we can grab everything properly. As you know, Gabby has been found to Miami-Dade County, and so we're going to do our best doing great minutes. With respect to having the commissioners come, I think this committee had a wonderful idea to engage and invite commissioners to understand their perspectives so that they could really develop good recommendations. But I did hear from the city attorney that it's best if commissioners just attend and observe, but their role is really more policy at the actual commission meetings and at committees, and that's where you can really hear their opinions and thoughts on all of the different projects happening. And this committee, this advisory board really needs to give their own feedback to the commission, of what you're thinking from the residents and from your own advisory board. So just noting that, and thank you for Commissioner Fernandez for coming anyway. And we hope to see more of you, but we'll continue to do invitations, but just with the aspect of having them observe rather than, having a direct line of questioning and how they feel very specifically on specific projects. So just a little nuance there.
We're happy to have you here.
Yes, thank you. And I think if the city attorney just wants to avoid commissioners influencing what should be the independent opinion of committees like these that are convened to give us advisory on projects and their impacts on private property, that kind of stuff. We get the opportunity to chime in all the time.
Certainly.
We need the independent feedback on committees.
Yeah, we appreciate that. That's what we're happy to do. So without further ado, I think we're going right to First Street, and we have Mr. Gomez here, we have Christina Ortega here, we have Kevin Polito here, Lauren Bertel is here, everybody's here. So I think what we're really looking for is an update because the facts have been a little murky lately in the resident community. So we'd like to get an update from you on where we're at and what are we doing to make sure people are getting clear.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Vice Chair and honorable committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today and give you an update on the First Street project. So just a little refresher of how we got to this point. As you all recall, we reached a milestone in the design at 60%. At that point, we stopped our consulting from any further design. We wanted to get an independent cost estimate from an independent consultant because we had a significant difference in the available funding versus what the cost of the project was. And just to recap, the total cost for the First Street project around $178 million. Also, as a reminder, we have 2 grants that were awarded to the First Street project by the Florida Resiliency Grant Program, one for $20 million and another one for $15 million. So we have $35 million in grant monies that we were successful in receiving from the state of Florida. So at that point, we engaged an independent consultant to verify the cost and also to give us a constructability and a phasing plan on how we could implement if the shortfall was so much that we couldn't fund all 4 phases, but rather how we would phase segments of the project. So the consultant came back and basically broke up the project into 4 distinct segments. Those segments are phase 1, which would be the installation of the pump station just south of Washington, just off of First Street on Washington Avenue with the outfall that goes out to South Point. The second phase would be First Street itself. The third phase would be Alton Road, and the fourth phase would be Washington Avenue. And just as a reminder also, both Washington and Alton are critical because this project is being designed for the entire South Point neighborhood. So it's not just for First Street, as some folks have thought the project was. It really encompasses the entire South Fifth neighborhood. So on Washington, on Alton, there are water quality wells that will be constructed at some point in the future when those phases are completed. So as a result of the plan that the consultant came up with, the distinct phases, like I said, were the pump station outfall was phase 1, First Street phase 2, phase 3 Alton, and phase 4 Washington Avenue. So at that point, the cost estimate was very close. The independent consultant came up with a cost estimate was very close to what our consultant Jacobs had come up with. So we felt really good that the numbers were validated, but we still have a significant funding shortfall. The good news is that we also last summer, our grants office submitted for another grant through the Federal Highway Administration. It's called a Protect grant, and these are available to state highway agencies throughout the United States. And that grant that we submitted, the amount is $63.2 million. We won't know until sometime late this summer whether we're successful or not. There's no guarantee we will, but you know, we have a good track record of receiving funding from grants, so we're cautiously optimistic that we'll receive some or all of that grant. But in the meantime, we know we have a funding shortfall. So after careful consideration, we decided that the first 2 phases, even though the cost is slightly above what we have in available funding, we have available funding $81.4 million, and our shortfall is about $89.5 million total. So if you add the 2 up, it translates to the $176 or $178 million. The funding shortfall for the first 2 is about $10 million. So it's a gap that we could probably bridge. So our proposal was to move forward with phases 1 and 2, meaning the pump station, outfall, and First Street, and then come back at a later time when we had to. Or if we're successful with getting that Protect grant, then that gap would be bridged closer. In the meantime, we have also received concern from certain members of the community that parking may be an issue in terms of the loss of parking. As you know, in the proposal, the typical section that we provided, the median is removed, and then we create a parking on both sides of the street, which means that we'll have valet and parking, and then parking on the other side, on the residential side. So the parking shortfall between what's available out there and currently, it's about a 40% loss in parking. So we asked our consultant to look at, okay, so if we had to reduce the parking shortfall to try to keep it under 10%, what could we do? And they came up with a configuration which provided diagonal parking. We presented that at FERC. We went back, and I should point out that at the March Commission meeting, because there's been several meetings, so I know I'm skipping on, but I just wanted to give you all a breath of where we are. So at the March Commission meeting, there was a referral for us to go back to FERC to try to see how we could come up with the phasing plan, the funding, and all that. And that was a referral to FERC on April 19th. We presented at FERC on April 19th. We received a favorable recommendation to move forward to the commission, to the May Commission meeting of the 15th. At the May Commission meeting, the commission decided that there were still questions that we needed to really hope and refine. the issue of the parking, the issue of the funding and all that. So it was decided that this would go to land use. And there's a special land use meeting that's tentatively scheduled for June the 18th, as the chair is here today. And he will be chairing that land use committee meeting. We'll be coming back to. In the meantime, we've also had meetings with representatives of South of Fifth neighborhood. We had one on, and I believe Mr. Stark, when you were there at that meeting on April the 25th. We also met with representatives of the South of Fifth neighborhood at Russell Galbraith's offices on May the 21st to kind of go over our plan. And I believe Mr. Marks was there representing the Continuum building. And we also met with representatives of Joe's Restaurant, obviously because the impacts to businesses, and we'll continue to meet with other members of the business community as well. Where we are right now is it appears that based on all these meetings that we've had since we introduced the diagonal parking, there doesn't seem to be a widespread support for diagonal parking for a couple of reasons. Diagonal parking will reduce the available green area that we would have to be able to plant trees. It also, there's it's not unsafe, but statistically speaking, diagonal parking is more prone to accidents than parallel parking. Although parallel parking also has some issues when people back into the space, but nevertheless, statistically speaking, based on all the research that I've reviewed with the Transportation Research Board and all that, statistically, it's about 30% more prone to that. So that and then the loss of the green space, I think were issues that members of the community say, you know what, I think we want more green area. We want ability to be able to plant trees. Another commitment that we've made, which was a concern to the community, was the oak trees that are out there. So we've decided that we're going to go ahead and try to salvage all the oak trees that are out there by root pruning them 3 to 4 months before construction starts to be able to get them ready to be transported. Our green space team is working right now on trying to find available areas within the city that we can move these trees to and have them and protect them there while the construction is going on, and then bring them back towards at the end of the, when we're ready to plant trees. Those that don't survive them will be replaced with oak trees as well, because that's the commitment that to be able to build that canopy, that appearance that First Street has, that makes it really special, is to provide for the oak trees. We've also committed to make sure that the caliper of the trees is a larger than normal, so it would be a up to 10-inch caliper of oak trees that we would be bringing in. So under the scenario of the current plan, which is the parallel parking on both sides, which is where we stopped at 60%, we would be able to have about 114 trees planted through on the First Street corridor, which is more than currently is out there, because right now we have about 89 trees.
And is the median in or out?
The median is out. And this was approved back in 2021. This was the typical section that was approved after much discussion with the community. So you have 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction. You have a wide valet lane, which is also a loading zone on the business side, and on the residential side, you have a parallel parking. And that's the typical, and the reason, and it's very important, the reason for that median is because part of the project is road raising. And it's about 1.5 foot average at the crown of the road. So if you think about it, as you raise at the crown of the road, you need that space to be able to harmonize. So by the time you get back to the properties, you're not impacting. There's no elevation difference you're matching at the property, as opposed to other places where you may have to have a transition up or down. So that's important. If you keep a median, then the harmonization starts further out, and then you have a more drastic. Your soil becomes more pronounced.
Less space to work with.
Right.
And where in the plan you're talking about with the parallel parking, no median, how many parking, what's the loss, the net loss of parking?
The net loss, so
Still 40%?
it's about, it's about 40%, and it's, let me, I have those numbers here, so here we go. So,
It's,
You know, it's like-
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
parallel current 36. That's
right,
parking on First Street is 60.
and then we would also,
Parallel current.
right, and then we
60%.
would gain, we would have 12 spaces also on Jefferson, which is right adjacent to it. So we would have a total of 48 parking spaces available as opposed to the current 85. And important to note, out of that 85, that surface lot, which is right next to Washington Avenue, that surface lot is where where the pump station equipment's gonna go. We're gonna have that really beautiful screen. And there are 12 spaces there that obviously will have to go.
Right. And if we go back to the finances for a second.
Mhm.
So you said that you might make up part of, we might be able to make up part of the 89.5 with this 60 million
With the
grant.
Protect grant, right, it's 63.2 million
63, so then we're only short around.
for the entire project. And it means if we only construct phases 1 and 2, we would actually be wholly funded.
Oh, you would be wholly funded for one and
Yeah,
two,
because we would.
if you got the grant.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're short.
We're short about, I think it's about 10 million or in change from phases 1 and 2. I think it's what, 104, it's about 60 million.
Okay, but it's doable.
It's doable.
Uh-huh. And because I think that's what one thing people are concerned about is they don't understand what doable would even look like. And then they hear the big numbers,
Right.
and the shortfall, and they think, well, this is a no-go, why are we doing this?
And also keep in mind that the project is gonna go to construction and assuming we get started on we get the commission approval to proceed from 60% on. Construction wouldn't start until 2026, so that buys us some time to be able to get that funding gap that we need to be able to. Because we have to have the monies obviously encumbered by the time we go to construction.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming some of the funds will come from the state as well.
I mean, if one thing I can tell you about City of Miami Beach is probably one of the most aggressive municipalities in terms of going after grants. To mention, we got the single largest grant was $20 million for the first round, and then we got an additional $15 million. And those are state funds.
Right.
And every year they put out more grant opportunities. And then this new one, the Protect, is a federal grant.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of grant opportunities out there, and our grants office takes full advantage of that.
Because we're talking state road, or at least partial state road, Alton
No,
Road is.
No, but
north
this
of
is-
Fifth.
Only north of Fifth,
Alton Road.
but
Yes.
yeah, but Alton Road, north of Fifth
South of Fifth?
is
Oh,
counted,
really?
yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that.
Ron, did you have something?
Yeah, I listened to the commission, and one of the new things that came up that I wondered if you had any updates on was this idea that maybe the pipe shouldn't go down first of all.
Yes.
Leave the street the way it is and go to the Joes, maybe to the Joes. You indicated there might be some technical difficulties, we're gonna look into it.
We did, we did, and thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Starman. We did, and the fact is that we spent a considerable amount of time looking at the engineering and the hydraulics. This is a very complicated hydraulic model and design that we've been able to create. The reason the pipe is as large as it is, 96 inches, which goes down First Street. The reason for that is that pipe is really at the bottom where it's collecting everything from Washington and Alton coming in, which connects into the pump station. And then from the pump station, it'll be pressurized and it'll be sent out through the outfall out to South Point, throughout the South Point Park.
Sure.
It is a tremendous amount of water and volume in the system. The way it works, our system is all a gravity until it gets to the pump station. Plus, we have on Alton and Washington, we have large diameter pipes that I think are 72 inches in diameter with water quality wells that are also part of the treatment system for the entire South Point. So one of things that was asked of us was to look at it, could we make smaller pipes and directional bore? Well, when you directional bore, like we do with our water and sewer pipes, those pipes are under pressure. So the geometry, when you directional bore, you start at one point and you come up at another, and you go deep down and you come up. So that geometry. When you're working with gravity system, you can't do that because then it's you're acting like a siphon. So you would need an incredible amount of head to be able to push that water to come out on the other side. So for gravity pipes, it's not an effective system. It just doesn't work hydraulically. It has to work with slope, and as it's receiving the water, then it moves into the pump station, and then the pump station pressurizes it and pushes it out.
So just to build a little bit on Ron's question, so a pipe the size that you need,
Mhm.
that's going to go onto First Street,
Mhm.
couldn't go on Commerce Street. Because it wouldn't fit, or because it was just,
On Commerce Street, we have our
We
54.
have a 54-inch force main that goes out underneath the, and you may recall that project.
And there was the big project that the county did with the force main project. That kind of has the real estate underground on Commerce.
So, and let me put that in context of the importance of that pipe. That pipe is what takes all of our sanitary sewer from the city underneath the bay into the central district, to Virginia Key. So that pipe is a focal, I mean, it's one of the
That
most.
might also runs down Washington Avenue.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
okay, so that, because that's, you know,
Right.
again, thinking about what people need to know.
Right.
I think that's a very important.
absolutely, absolutely.
That if people know that, then they don't say, well, on the next one, they say Second Street, why can't it go down
On
Second?
Second Street, there are multiple utilities, including an FPL duct bank as well. And Second Street, the right of way width is 50 feet as opposed to First Street, which is 100 feet. So we're talking about twice the space, which also allows us to move the 96-inch pipe away from the business side so that we can maintain 2 lanes during construction, a valley lane and a through lane, while that's being, because that's very important to be able to make sure that the businesses, their operations continue as we construct the project.
Yeah, and what about this idea of Joe's parking lot?
They own it.
Yeah, of course.
And there was a time, Lauren can speak more to it, but my understanding is that there was a proposition to Joe's to perhaps for the city to acquire a portion of it, or for using a portion of the lot for the above ground components, and that was
Joe's is not interested in.
Yeah.
Selling or.
Yeah, so-
that was the outcome of every
To our-
conversation about the use of that property.
Did you go through all this in your meeting with Mr. Galvin? Because I think he's the driving force behind.
We did, and he specifically asked us, Lauren was there at the meeting, to meet with Joe's afterwards. Lauren and I set up a meeting with the ownership of Joe's. We went through the whole plan. One of their concerns obviously was how do they navigate during construction? And I think one of the things that we talked about was the possibility of using South Point, which was the original entrance that Joe's had on the backside, and move the valley operations and all that on South Point Drive to make sure that while we're constructing the outfall down Washington, it would not affect the operations of Joe's. So we provided them some maps. They're gonna mark up some things for us. We're gonna come back and sit down and incorporate all that as part of our MOT and construction phasing plans. And we're gonna be doing that with other businesses along First Street as well.
For further clarification, there has been ongoing communication with Joe's management as well as other restaurant management
Right.
long before.
Yeah, so this accusation that you never talk to businesses, it's not.
Absolutely not.
So especially
Surprise,
Lauren, I
surprise.
would say Lauren and I, Mariana at the time, we've had one-on-one meetings with not just each of the businesses.
Rebecca Towers.
Rebecca
Many of the
Towers.
residential buildings, many of the businesses.
You know, it strikes me just anecdotally, having lived, I think I was one of the first residents to sit on a panel to look at the original design for the pump station. We chose Jacobs, this was 2015, maybe 2014, it was a long time ago. And it's just been the duration of this, you know, it's like, talk about a long campaign.
Yes, and before Jacobs, there
There was
wasn't
another
one
consultant waiting for
other.
him.
Right,
So-
so I think part of, it seems to me anyway, that as a communication professional, that part of the challenge of this is just its longevity. And all the things that we may have done, but some of them we did many moons ago.
Right.
Some of them, and they're all staged over time. So to the city, it likely appears like, well, look at all the stuff we've done, because you have. It's been meeting upon meeting upon presentation forever, right? But to the person on the street, that is the one that calls me, or calls any of us here, any commissioners, it appears like this is just happening all the time. And I'm wondering, are we letting people know the exactly what you said here, sort of a précis of what this is, like why Commerce Street wouldn't work, what the alternatives are that have been explored, so that people don't think they haven't. And if they don't have the ability to tune into public meetings or go to City Hall, is there a way to get the sort of a slick sheet?
I mean, we can do an FAQ document, I think we have
That
this
would,
drafted for a lot of the projects. And if
I
We
think,
wanna put one
I
on-
think it's probably time if we hadn't done one, or if we had done one previously,
we can
to
update it.
update it for sure, because a lot of things have happened in between. And we did, in fairness, we did stop the project for almost a year, doing the independent cost estimate on it, so out of sight, out of mind, I completely understand that, so. I think that would be a great idea, and also update the webpage for the project page as well.
And to add and going, kind of going into the next conversation of lessons learned, these were lessons learned from previous projects, from the CIP, Youth Creek, from West Avenue, where we have updated web pages that have historical information. We try to put every LTC on this project from when the webpage was created. We put the presentations on there, so if somebody's new in the area, they have this knowledge base on our webpage. We started implementing FAQs, with the West Avenue project. I think we have one for First Street, but like you said, there's new questions that come up as it goes through the process, so that's a good question as to
They can be
why
living
Commerce.
documents that get updated sporadically, but like as Joe was referencing the presentation that he gave at the SOPNA meeting, so was your committee member online. So it's there.
yeah, I think, I know Scott Diffenderber came to us last time and in talking on behalf of this committee and the kinds of things that they found that worked. They came and had my ankle up on a thing I was listening to. But he said that sometimes text messages did pretty well. I'm wondering if we updated, and this is just an idea, whatever, you're the pros, but if we updated things and let people know somehow that they were updated, so they could drive them to it a bit, as
Yeah.
opposed to, it's just a thought.
No, that's a great idea. There's new softwares that have come out, like there's this app called Community that is a text message based app that you enroll to. And as people do updates, they'll send the text out. We had text message services through the state for emergency purposes and for traffic purposes.
Right.
And we can't utilize that, but we could look into
Yeah.
another means where,
Absolutely.
and something we also implemented from previous, lessons learned. Our pages now, whenever we update it, on the bottom, we put last updated. And then we also do that, so we know, like, we just updated the page in April when we presented to SOPNA. Again, so at the bottom, you can see when was the last time this page was updated, because sometimes you go to a web page, and while things might have been updated, other projects remain dormant, and that page has been there for a while, so you don't know how accurate that is. So now we make sure to update it. I like the idea when the web page is updated, we tell everybody, we have to look into that technology, to like kind of bring it on board, it exists. It's just not something we have right now. We're gonna have a new email notification system. We use Constant Contact now. We're going to a new provider that has text message ability. So we're already exploring that with IT.
The challenge is people don't look at the website.
Yeah,
You know, they look at, I read Facebook sometimes and the people are just, you know, they're so annoyed that they're not receiving updates. I mean, especially, for example, the 41st Street project.
yeah,
I mean, the day of construction, everyone was screaming and yelling and saying how incompetent the city is,
yeah,
that no one was informed of the project, and
yeah.
they're stuck in traffic. You know, so they're not getting the updates, they're not receiving the information.
One of our other challenges, people have to sign up to receive.
Of course,
email.
but they don't know.
Yeah, exactly. For the
You know.
41st Street one, I was happy because I also read the comments that some people would chime in like, hey, they sent this out a little while ago, that they would share our updates. So what we also do, like with Facebook, when there's a big project like 41st Street, that's such an impact. For this one, we started really early. I think we started like 3 weeks before it started. Then we started posting it on Facebook next door. So that way, if you don't get the email updates, you could maybe see it on Facebook. If you don't see it on Facebook, we'll try to catch you some other way. But yeah, that our challenges and going into the text message conversation, one of the challenges will be getting people to opt in. Because even for our emergency text messages, I think we're only at like 17,000 people that have subscribed. You know, it's a good amount, but it's not, we're a city of 80,000 people,
Right.
so yeah, that's part of our challenges, but what we do to create our databases is, as you sign up for our new water meter system, now you have to input an email, all the different data points we have as a city, periodically we'll try to update that into our email notification system, just to get more emails in those lists.
Is there something that we can do, I mean, this is utility, so I don't know if there's something we can do, but can we send in updates with the utility bills? Something
We've
like that.
done that as
So
well.
they have, Joe can speak more to it, but there's like a blurb, for lack of better words, that, you know, you have like basically 2 sentences worth of space
So that-
on, so like you can say it, send a quick message or reference people to go somewhere,
Yeah.
but you can't like. They,
Put a separate
so far they
line.
haven't let us slip in a fact sheet. I've tried.
There's an application that I absolutely despise because it drives me crazy, is Neighborhood. I don't know if anyone
Next
through it, next
Next
door,
door?
next door, whatever. Because it sends me messages constantly, and I've blocked it so many times. I mean, there's just something that we could, you know, and it's not next door, it's
We, the
it's
city
Neighborhood.
uses next
Oh,
door
there's
also.
neighbors is the ring.
Neighbors, yeah,
Yeah,
because you know, there's a
neighbors,
list for
yeah.
lost dogs and all this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yes.
It's annoyance. is
It burns up my Apple Watch.
It drives me crazy, but that's something that, you know, you can
Yeah.
see notifications on that way.
Yeah, I don't know actually, if there's, cause next door, there's an agency function that we're on. I don't know about neighbors, but we'll look into that. I think police is on neighbors. But maybe we could, you know, another means, but like you were saying, the utility bills for West Avenue, at one point, we were putting little blurbs in, trying to start sending people to the West Avenue website, the roll for updates, where Lauren was saying that those 2 sentences. Now they've actually updated the system and we have this new app called Eyes on Water, where you enroll to see your water usage and it gives us the ability to do a pop-up. So you'll sign in and then you'll get a pop-up and then now we have another, you know, another layer where we can put kind of whatever we want with whatever messaging we need in that pop-up. So
That's
as you're
another thing
checking,
where we would like for more people to
Yeah, I
sign
think
up for Eye on
high on
Water.
water would be great.
yeah,
Even with that great tool, we only have maybe a 12-15%.
We wish more, they installed,
Yes.
what, 14,000 new meters?
Yeah.
And I discovered a
It's a
leak
great
from
tool.
it that,
oh yeah.
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 I
Thank
did
you.
too. I was out of town.
We love to hear
and-
success stories.
yeah, I mean, I gotta find out now what the leak is, but.
Oh, one step at a time.
At least you know about it,
But-
at least you know about
But
it.
at the very least, you could call and say, hey, can you just shut off my meter until I get back?
Right,
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
details where you can see the usage per hour
absolutely.
is really great. Back to communication and a little off topic, but Saturday night there was a DUI checkpoint. Was that?
What was it, DUI checkpoint?
On Julian
It
Tunnel.
was, yeah, it was.
License plate reader, LPR.
Yeah, so what we did was we had, I think 1 lane was closed for license plate readers and then the police officers were in that closed lane. And then they would pull cars over and that was on Fifth Street and on the tunnel.
Right.
Was that communicated?
Yeah, so what we did, we had a Memorial Day email that went out citywide, we had a community meeting, I think the Tuesday or the Thursday.
Before.
Not before Memorial Day, but
Yeah,
previous
yeah,
Thursday,
previous.
and then we, on that text message that I was referencing earlier, we had sent a traffic text, I believe a Friday and Thursday prior. But we tried to push that out, it was, where I could see some confusion is, it went out with a lot of our Memorial Day messaging, which had traffic, parking, so you would, kind of have to scroll
It
through
was
that.
part of the email,
Yeah.
it wasn't a separate.
There's a lot
Do you
of
think there's a way
information.
to like update Waze about it or some of those, so that way?
In touch.
Yeah,
Because Waze, like when I went to Waze and it said, oh, 10 minutes across the bridge, it didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
I think our transportation department.
Yeah.
They are in touch.
So they're in touch with the Waze, I think
Yeah,
they're
they
working on
have,
it, yeah.
we have a traffic monitoring service that we have a room with cameras and they're just constantly watching the beach and they're usually in touch with Waze. They're always sending us, like whenever there's an accident reported on Waze, they send us like that screenshot
That's
from
what,
Waze.
how they're able to do the traffic text, like there's an accident at X location.
Yeah, so I'll confirm with transportation if in advance do we notify them of what's coming. Cause I've seen recently on Waze, there's integration or FDOT is posting on
Yeah.
Waze, so I'll just make sure we're doing the same.
I'd like to see if I can circle the wagons back to First Street.
Yes, of
And,
course.
just be a party pooper. Do you have anything, Bill, that you'd like to ask? I'm sure, what's up, just, more?
Well, also, we have all the condominium email addresses, we have all the neighborhood association emails, that's another way we could outreach.
I know that we have talked in this community before about the problems with condo outreach. We're either contacting the condo association, which would be the building management. Or if we get to the board, we sometimes aren't sure if we're getting to the residents themselves, unless we're getting to them through our
It's
regular.
very dependent on the property manager and the board. There are many projects where, correct, there are gatekeepers, so to speak. And we do hope that they forward our message to all of their residents, because to go inside of a building, we've had this conversation. Like, we're not really supposed to go inside to every, 500 doors.
No.
But-
Nor would you like to, but.
When you send those communications to a board or whatever, do you put in there in some prominent place, please forward this to your
We have.
residents?
Most of the time, we'll say, please share this with your membership, please share this with your neighbors. Just recently on a public works project, on 73rd Street, we sent out a notice, which had a traffic change, and then it had gone out. Then I received an email from somebody a few days later that had a question about it. They're like, oh, I just realized because our board didn't send it out. And then they complained about their building a little bit, but then they shared their question with me, and then I made sure I added them directly on our list, so now going forward, they're always gonna receive, but.
Well, maybe my thought is I don't know if you've got that at the bottom in just a normal sentence, or if you've got that in full pipe at the top.
There was a
so that
period of
if-
time that we added it, at Nina's suggestion, actually, to the West Avenue notices, because it is significantly condo, and we wanted them to specifically forward it to all of the residents, or if they have an internal door-to-door process, or post it on the mailbox room, or any way to get the word out.
Yeah, I think we were actually just discussing this yesterday, we've started to see on like county emails and other emails, on the bottom where there's subscription preferences, now it says, was this forwarded to you?
Yeah.
Click here to enroll.
Yeah.
So I think that's something we're gonna start adding on ours, and then at the top of our emails, it says view as webpage, because if you don't have that link, we found out through some HOAs, they can't share it, so now we've added that at the top. We're gonna add a button now where you could just click and either, enroll yourself. Because, some people forward it on.
I wanna see it. Lynn, do you have anything specifically that you'd like to talk to?
I actually had a quick website related question. I see on the website, there's an active map showing current construction projects, and there's also a part showing completed projects. Is there an area showing future projects in the pipeline?
The design ones are also on the active map, because it's
Color coded,
considered
so, yeah.
design, like, it's active even though it's in design.
Okay, so the First Street project would be on the active. map.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
okay, got it.
yes.
So when the First Street project is, it's just, our hamsters are going. So is there any way they look at that and they see the First Street project, that there's any little flickering light or something or clickable that takes them to any information on it? I mean, would there be even a way to do that?
So
I mean,
I know,
On that map, because I know that Nestor was the one that developed that, with
Yeah.
GIS, developed the map.
I think the challenge would be every project is gonna want the flicker.
Yeah.
But only First Street gets it. I understand, it makes sense,
You know,
we just,
one thing,
There is a little blurb that comes up. See, I just clicked on it.
see. Go ahead.
If you click on, and then more information will bring you to the page that's all about that project.
one thing we could probably, food for thought, but I know FDOT does is they have what they call the major projects website from each district.
Yeah.
And it's projects that are of a certain size and all, not every project is there.
Right.
This would obviously fall, West Avenue would be, you know, those are major projects. And maybe when it's a major project on that map,
on the map.
we can have
different
the,
icon.
Yeah.
icon that'll direct you to the website, which has listing of all the major projects, including the one you're looking at.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think the number of people who actually go to the website and look at maps of the city's projects is probably on the slow side. And that the communication more needs to go direct on specific projects to the individual residents of the buildings. For example, in the case of a condo or a single family, I think that's where the focus should be, because just creating lots of links and things and all that within a website that's sort of for the wonky person who likes to look at where all these projects in the city is that's not really where the focus needs to be. More on, okay, we got a project in West Avenue. How can we maximize the number of emails we have, people who live in West Avenue, and communicate to them directly on just this project, because they probably don't care about it.
Right, because what at least I keep hearing, and I'm sure everybody who does, I know Ron does, is that people feel underrepresented on these projects. They feel that they haven't had a chance somehow because they didn't know about a meeting, or they didn't get information, or a board or an association made a decision, but they weren't asked about it, and that's what we hear. Well, I didn't know about it, and they only talked to just a couple board members, and they decided that we were all okay with it. Well, I'm not okay with it, or I have an idea. Now, true, you know, there has to be some reasonableness there, but we're just always trying to think of ways that we can touch people better, so that at least they go to their board, they go to SOFNA, they come to a commission meeting about lanes, because they know to do it. If they have input of
I
any
also
kind.
get random emails from residents who are on the website, or if anyone, board member, no board member, that asks a question, gets a response. We've done one-on-ones by anyone who asks for one.
I hear you,
So-
I know, we've worked together for a long time, but I'm just saying, you know, the other thing that I wanted to do, nobody else has questions, is I wanted to just sort of recap the, you know, when we're looking at FAQs and things with First Street specifically, the timing, the timeline, we've talked about that in this committee many times. People are very concerned about, well, when there's gonna be events, when is that gonna start, okay? There's been a lot of talk about the shortfall, you know, the money, so what you told us was so informative and helpful. It'd be great to have, you know, I don't know if I call them FAQs, I might call them, you know, important, questions or important issues.
Facts about the project.
Yeah, fact sheet, because that's what it is, really.
Right.
And they're not questions, they're facts, and people need that, so they have some grounding. The parking the parking laws, you know, so that, what is that really gonna look like? What's the parking, and so important to me, why does the pipe have to go down First Street? Why, and what, more importantly, perhaps, why can't it go down Commerce? Why wouldn't it work on Second Street? Because people don't know. If I didn't know, I forgot, and like Lauren said, I was there. You see, the hamsters get lost.
I would also ask one timeline, just from a staff perspective, because we may have this is the timeline that we want, but we don't know if that's the timeline that, it gets very tricky in saying
I get it.
ideal timeline or proposed timeline, and then people wanna hold you to it, and we don't know
Right.
how it will play
Or
out.
even when do we expect the first big step? I think people aren't as complicated. I agree that sometimes you can do TMI, and then you don't really know, and that gets you in a bind.
Sure.
But when is the first big step expected? What does 60% design even mean? People ask me that all the time.
And
What's
what-
60?
I didn't mean to interrupt, but what is that, how much does that really impact residents of Miami Beach? Because most of those buildings in that neighborhood have parking garages.
Correct.
They're all high-end buildings,
Right.
so that's just non-residents that,
No.
that won't have
They
parking.
will
It's
tell
a
you
big
otherwise.
discussion.
They will.
Yeah, that's-
Of course they will.
Yeah, no, no.
But realistically,
I
they're not
live-
residents.
I
That is
live
very
there, and people do sometimes use the parking, plus they have household help, gas.
Yeah, it's often
And
the service
so on.
vehicles.
You
for-
can't believe how many people use.
There's also
the street parking.
townhouses and other stuff there that doesn't have parking. And I think it's only residential parking anyways, right?
But that residential parking, kicks in, say, from 10 PM to 5 or 6 AM in the morning, which is, because it's zone 2. Resident, any other time, anybody can park, for a maximum of 2 hours.
But if you're going there for dinner, you don't have a choice but to valet or,
That's anywhere in South Beach.
well, no, Joe's has a parking lot.
Right.
So it provides you parking.
Right, for free, of course, I know.
Which we'd like to use for something else.
Like out the garage in the parking lot.
Believe it or not, I've come to Joe so many times, and I've never used the parking garage once.
No, not the
Always
garage.
valid. I always
No, like
valid.
a surface lot.
Oh, yeah, the surface lot.
The
too.
garage is
I-
for employees,
I'm lazy, I just.
right? I think people, the garage is for employees only.
The one on the
No, I
side
think-
takeaway?
Okay.
Yes.
The only garage that Joe's has is for employees.
Oh, I was about to say.
I'm gonna circle the wagon.
Okay.
Not that I don't love talking about Joe.
I think,
I mean, I just-
Galen wanted to
I just wanna make a point that everybody who doesn't have a car, doesn't complain. And like, I don't know how we do that, like, I know a lot of people who live here who don't have cars. And they don't get their voice heard as much in the parking where they like want the space. They mostly just get to make that point in the planning process. A bunch of people engage in the planning process. And I said this before, like, you're gonna have the same conversation. I just wanna be like super clear about this. Because there are a lot of people here who don't have cars and they are not as negatively impacted, but they're still paying for these things, right? They pay as much for this and are interested in, like, they're here in Miami Beach because they can walk around their bike and not in cars. And I think it's a conversation that is going to have to happen and keep happening,
Is
but like,
your
in my
goal
experience.
to make that voice heard?
My point is that, this goes back to other conversations I've had. There are a bunch of ways that you can engage in the process. And what I notice is that there are these moments when the neighborhood rises up and speaks out, around parking, for example. But those are certain neighborhood people. I think parking is totally an issue, we need to deal with it, but that's not everyone, and
If you're referring to the silent supporter,
yeah.
I would love for the silent supporter to
Yes.
not be so silent.
No, but like sometimes they're an exhausted supporter,
Please.
they're an exhausted and defeated
I
supporter,
understand, because
because
they're
I can
on
say
the-
that on the biking side, I've gone.
My dog is here.
I have said things, and you know what happens?
Simple.
Ultimately, it
Silent
seems
supporter.
like the parking argument
comes back right at the end, like after you said, okay, well, let's have the conversation, let's engage, come on, everybody. Like, you know, and then you show up, like literally show up and you're like, oh,
Maybe it's just also a matter, that's a good point. If it's a matter of whoever is holding the meeting, facilitating the meeting, wants to make sure that those voices are heard. So it carves
They're
some
not
space.
always in the meeting, they're often at
Or-
work
Like honestly, I don't wanna go to the meeting when I've already weighed in on the meeting.
Understood, but I'm wondering, from just a standpoint of, what do we do with this information? We have this information and we know it's there. So how can we use it to be more effective, right, in communicating it going forward? And I'm wondering if there's a way, and again, you're all pros, so. But if there's a way to carve out space for people who maybe wouldn't normally get in the conversation, or if there are groups that are like bike groups, other kinds of groups, that the information gets to those groups, so that if they choose to get in conversation, they could. That's all I was thinking, but in terms.
I mean, they're organized and active, and I have seen the engagement kind of go down as they have had less wins and things have been pulled back after the pandemic. There was just like a lot of infrastructure that shifted and people they got discouraged.
Yeah.
And there's some really, really nasty language that happens in the community. Around that, specifically around trying to get more transit and getting the Bay Link in. There was like nasty language in different, other sides, but like honestly, I didn't feel like engagement. And that's just to like, like that's my sense of it, is that engagement went down,
Well, these things go in cycles either way.
Yeah.
I've been in the neighborhood, advocacy.
but I'm not, like,
Goes up and down.
you're totally right, and maybe it's the kind of thing where it's like, is it weird to engage the advocacy organization?
No, I think so, that's something that's coming out of this that could be helpful.
Yeah.
Back to First Street, do that. So, is there anything else? Commissioner, do you have anything you'd like to add, without asking you questions?
No, I just say that, I think Joe has done a very good job in laying out the challenges that we have, which are the very few options that we have for this essential piece of infrastructure. And I think perhaps just hearing the feedback of this committee, perhaps what we can do a better job, and heading into the special land use committee that we're gonna be having is explaining, not just what is being proposed, but what was already considered. That we considered the Joe's parking lots, that we considered Commerce Street, that why Second Street is not an option, and why we're left with this, and the different options that were considered with First Street, and even like how, diagonal parking was looked at for mitigation of parking loss, and how considering safety to pedestrians and bicyclists, diagonal parking is no longer, something that is favorable to move forward with. I think telling that more complete picture of not just of what is being proposed, but the other options that were on the table and why they're no longer, or why they were never even feasible to start with. And I will go a step further, and again, this is not to the committee, this is to staff, listening here, sometimes words don't explain it best. Sometimes you need to show people a visual of what's underground. Even if it's a sketch, this is Washington Avenue, this is where you have a force main, and this is why this can be accommodated on Washington Avenue. But this is Commerce Street, and this is why Commerce Street can't accommodate this, and this is why the alleyway can't, putting it in visuals so that people are able to perhaps see it better, understand it better in ways that they might not be able just to capture it with words.
It's really true, almost like a line drawing, where you've got a section,
Yes.
you see Commerce Street, First Street, Second Street, Commerce Street. Yeah, it's true, but that's perfect, because I think that's what people are missing. They see thing after thing after thing, and they get it presented in almost isolation. And they don't realize that the options that are not on the table anymore, why they're not there,
Right.
why they couldn't be there. And if there isn't any wiggle room, they need to know.
And I think the last thing is then, and then not doing a project, what are the consequences? Not just to a neighborhood, but to the city,
No build scenario.
you know, of the consequences of not doing some of these projects. Because I think that that's part of what people don't understand also.
No.
You know, its impacts not just to the infrastructure of one neighborhood, you know, even as, you know, the ripple effect of, you know, credit rating, you know, by Moody's and other rating agencies, and how that has a citywide impact on our city's finances when we don't move forward with one project in one neighborhood over a parking issue. You know, and I think that that's important.
And the great credit rating that the city has.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's important to frame
Right.
in some of our messaging, but that's just a sound.
I would second that on the credit rating. It is extremely important that Miami Beach is proactive, making investments and explicit about it. Right? Like, and it's nation leading too. It's like, you know, we love to be proud of things, right? Like, I think it's pretty dorky, but like it's, or whatever, it's like pretty detailed, but like we should be proud of the credit rating and the fact that you did it by.
Every year we have
explaining
meetings with the bond companies. And their questions are always, so what are you doing for resiliency? What are you doing for your infrastructure? And we have to address that in detail. And yeah, that's important. That's the reason the city maintains the credit rating that it does, because we've shown year after year that we do that. And if we start taking a step back, it would be kind of catastrophic for the city.
And if I can add as well too, when we talk about this project has been around so long, you know, we did a business case analysis in 2020 to understand the impact of property values for doing this resilience infrastructure work. We spent a lot of time and analysis and money and created a first of a kind model that brought together stormwater modeling, risk modeling, and property values, hedonic modeling. And it showed how important it was to do First Street. For property values, you know, in addition to the risk and the bond rating agencies. So we have, I think, so much to share that I think we all need a refresh.
Yeah.
Sharing, because it's still current data, right? It's still
Very current data, yeah. I
Very
think
relevant,
to
very
the
relevant.
Commissioner's point, because they're also, one of the issues that comes up in the calls that come in is to me, the whole insurance issue. There's a lot of information and
myth out there about-
disinformation or.
Get this information.
And so that, to be able to explain that, I think would be very important, because they're hearing. And they're afraid. So I think that, yeah, the clearer we can, the clearer, more visual, or succinctly, we can paint the picture and answer the questions. So that people know, okay, this is the right way to do this then. Maybe some parts of it I don't like so much. I don't like the fact that the First Street's gonna be torn up, but this is the way to go. And this is why, because it's important. So is there anything else that you'd like to say to us, ask us?
No, other than you're more than welcome to attend the special land use meeting. And we'll be happy to come back at a later date and update you on our progress. But we're cautiously optimistic that we can move this. This is a greatly needed project for the city as a whole, not just for the South Point neighborhood, but for the city as a whole. And just like the West Avenue project, these are critical projects for the city. And I think it's time that we move these projects forward.
So since you did such a great job wrapping up, I'm gonna throw just a quick, sorry. So would you say from everything you know, and you know everything, that there's any
that there are any movable parts in this right now. That as it's designed now with all the vetting and everything, that there's anything that really optimally could be shifted or changed. You know, as a.
As I told the commission, at the commission meeting, I don't like to engineer from the dais, from the podium, because I will tell you that this team has done an extraordinary job of looking, we got requests to look at options. And I think, given the constraints, and I think that's very important, given the constraints that we have, and the infrastructure that we have in the ground, I think we've engineered the best solution for the South Point neighborhood. And I think, I would be remiss if I didn't say that, because there's been a considerable amount of time and effort put into this, and a lot of thought, and a lot of really good professional people have put in their heart and soul into this. So, you know, I really am proud of this team, and I stand by the work that we've done, and I just want to move this forward.
You've combed through it many times, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Appreciate all
Thank
the
you,
work.
thank you guys, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate that time.
See you in.
I warmed up the seat for you today.
I think
18.
18.
Yeah,
June
special.
June 18th. Thank
June
you
18th.
again.
May 28th.
Thank you all.
Yesterday's, West End.
Oh, yeah.
That went well.
Huh?
That went well.
Yes.
Well,
Okay, I guess.
Anything you need. You know,
Would you like to take the hot seats, or would you like to stay in the coolness of the gallery?
David Gomez,
David.
interim director for capital improvements.
Welcome.
Thank you all for having us. I want to start by saying how absolutely floored I am with the insight and the sensitivity that this group has expressed in terms of the challenges we face for outreach and communication. These debates happen at all levels, at all times, constantly on all of our projects. And all of you have hit all of the major points that we discussed and that we try to deal with on a regular basis. So I'm absolutely thrilled that you guys understand the challenges that we face in communicating with folks.
I'm sure we don't understand the quality.
You
Aspirin.
you expressed
Clear.
every major point that we face, every single one. I did want to introduce Mina Samadi. She is one of our senior project coordinators. We changed the title recently. And she is the one with the greatest experience on dealing with neighborhood-wide projects. She's done several of them. Among the most recent that she finished was the Indian Creek project. And Amy had asked us to put together our approach on communicating with the residents and the community. And Mina, I think, can do a good job of wrapping up how we do that.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I have a little short presentation, and actually, as I was listening to you guys, you have covered so much. And I have missed a couple of things that we have actually implemented that you guys have mentioned it. So when we start a project normally, I have done, as David said, I've done many of the neighborhood improvement projects, a little bit larger projects. The most recent ones are Sunset 3 and 4, Common Hibiscus, Indian Creek, and now West Avenue. Before that, of course, was Royal Northway Road and Biscayne Point and all of that. But throughout all of these projects, we've learned a little bit, and we implement whatever we learn in the next project. So we started actually doing a lot of the FAQs on Indian Creek. We posted, Lauren and her team created the FAQs. We posted those on the website. We disseminated that through the neighborhood. We did a lot of the plans, actually drawings of the project on the website. We put them all up because the community asked for it. They wanted to see the plans, so we provided to them. So I guess the purpose of this presentation is to just very briefly go through the process that we normally go through. And how do we deal with the staff, the public, the contractor, and what happens during this time. So if you would please go to the next slide. So the first thing that actually Lauren and her PIO team does, the public information liaison does, is to create a database of all the buildings. On Indian Creek, we had multi-residential buildings, and when we send information out, we did meet with the board and property management companies. Of course, we had some residents on our project meetings as well, but we did mention to them to please, and put it on the flyers and the information that we send out to disseminate the information to your residents. So they create the database. The database has the address of the building, all the building representatives, their emails, their contact, their phone number, and then we track when we meet with them and what the gist of the communication is. So that's one of the databases that we keep continuously throughout the project. After we do that, then we have, it depends on what phase of the project you're in. If you're in design or you're in construction or what type of project you have design bid build or we have design build. So the approach is a little bit different, but normally prior to a construction project, we have a pre-construction meeting with the community. And normally what happens in those meetings is that we are in there, our PIO is there, the contractor, the engineer of record, and if we have any other consultants that are going to be participating in the projects are involved. And we go over the project itself, overview of the project, what it entails. We share some of the details of the project with them, where we are, whether we are in design or we are in construction, and what is the next step for the project. All the issues that we have regarding the neighborhood, we try to get feedback from them. Any other projects that are within the vicinity, we discuss a lot of the things and we disseminate a lot of information on those project meetings and timelines, what we expect the duration to be. Generally, the contractor talks about all of those. The next slide is some of the information that we provide to the community when we are doing the project. We have bi-weekly media information that we update the community with. Sometimes we send advisory in between because something may have changed. Then we have the list of the email and the phone calls. If there is something happening in a specific location, we reach out to the individuals, to the property managers and to the board members, individually emailing them, which you guys talked about just a little bit ago regarding First Street. And if there is something that we really need to make sure that everybody gets the information and be informed about, then we have the door-to-door, they put the door-to-door information. Lauren and her team go actually door-to-door and provide the information on their doors. And of course, we always attend HOA meetings and any kind of community meetings, whether online or as they go on. I'm still in touch with both Sunset 3 and 4 and the Common Hibiscus HOA because we have ongoing project going. So I attend all of those meetings with them. So those are some of the things that we do. I guess the next slide, yeah, I'm lost in here myself. Okay. So we do that. And then I wanted to show you some of the advisories and the updates that we do before we start the project. We have we have advisory as into what is the project. Then we include some of the FAQs in there with it and explain what the project is, what is the timeline, can they expect. And during, again, every 2 weeks, we send the project update and project advisory. So those are the type of things that you may have seen coming to you, but those are what it looks like. And in case of, next slide would be in the case of projects that are in design. So we started doing harmonization work. We did that on Sunset 3 and 4, Common Hibiscus, Indian Creek, and now West Avenue. We have a form that has to be it's just a few of the pages, it's not the whole thing. When we're doing the design, one of the things that we learned is that you have to harmonize the properties with the roadway raising. So we have to reach out to the community and the individual buildings first. So this is a form, a legal form actually, everybody has to sign, that goes with the design that we have prepared. We go with the consultant and the contractor team, meet with the individual property owners, meet with the community, the buildings and the board members and the property managers. We have high rises in West Avenue, Indian Creek, and explain all of that to them. So in order for them to be able to sign this document, they have to know what the design is exactly. And this is some of the sample of the information that we provide to them. Meanwhile, as we are doing other outreach. And there is there's additional information. I just put a next slide is just as a part of the harmonization agreement, we have like the steps regarding how to take care of drainage system and some other information. I don't have a sample of the FAQ that we did for Indian Creek, but that was one of the first projects that we did. We did all of that information for them. Again, I just wanted to very briefly go over the things that we do as a part of the outreach for the projects. Next slide is that we also keep a list of any issues that we have during the project. Who did we talk to? What was the issue? What happened at the end? And did it get resolved or was it outstanding? So this is pretty much what we do during a very, very short and brief fast explanation of what we do.
Thank you.
It's way more complicated as you go along.
No kidding.
And everything. I just wanted to very briefly go through it, but you have discussed a lot of this yourselves and you know about all of this. And it's always good to know. And as I said, as I was listening to you, I forgot to put the FAQ and the information that we put on the website in this presentation, but we do all of that. And of course, getting additional information from you to improve would be great.
Appreciate it.
If I could expand on what she touched on with organization tools, those alone are multiple meetings with each individual property.
Right.
It's never a one-time
And there are
meeting.
unique parts
It
that,
is
that apply.
feedback, they tell us what they like, what they don't like, what they want different, we go back, we review it, we meet with them multiple times. And together with that is overall project updates as well, right? Because as they're looking at their property and their organization, they ask you, oh, what's going on in the corner over there?
Right.
So we take those opportunities to provide more information as well.
That's where this committee kind of came in season one. Season one, this is when we weren't at our cast yet. We began really looking at the problems with the harmonization agreements. And so I think it would be interesting, what kind of improvements have you made to those meetings or that process? Or really any of this, because one of the things we wanted to talk a little bit with you about today is what did you learn and what are you doing different? And what might you do different in the future?
Right, so some of the things that we did differently from previous project to Indian Creek and now to West Avenue and so on is to make sure that the harmonization issue is discussed, resolved prior to starting the construction. That's one thing. Two is that we did a FAQ, which was extremely helpful. Provided that in paper copies to the individual residents and the community and on the website. And we posted all the plans. A lot of the community members, example, Indian Creek, actually Indian Creek was very unique because the community was actually filming the progress of the project on daily basis. And there was,
They were
yes.
flying a drone daily
Daily basis.
to measure progress.
So if there was any issue at all, they would reach out and let us know, hey, there is something going on. So, I mean, even though that we already knew, we would get feedback from them. But what I'm saying is that we, as we went along the projects, we modified our approach, enhanced and did more. And then the other thing that we did was the frequency at which we did things. Okay, so every time that we think that there is something that is very, very important that needs to go out, we send an email, mass email out to the community from which we have database. Sometimes happens that we get emails, stray emails like Lauren was talking about, and somebody says, well, I live here, I never got your email. We encourage everybody to let their neighbors know and provide the information for Lauren and the PIO team to the community so they can reach out to us and we can add them to the database and provide more information. But mostly, again, the website, they're providing the drawings, having the FAQ and increasing the frequency of our communication with the public.
Questions from the committee to address? I have a couple, because the hamsters are always going. So we love the door hanger.
Yeah,
Right, because it's so physical.
Yeah.
And easy, and I'm wondering, do we also do, like, because in condos, you weren't going in and putting that in.
We're not able to.
Can't do
Yeah,
that.
that's,
We can, if the property there have been property managers that say like, can I have a stack of flyers and we will provide that. There have been, sometimes they'll just want like half a dozen so that they put them in common areas.
They allow you to put signage in the residential, multi-residential, or would they put it up?
We
Yeah.
ask them to do that. We
Right.
ask always for the board or the property manager to provide all the information. As Laura says, we have extra copies of the information we provide to them. And the other thing that we do is that while we are starting the project, as the contractor is out there in the field, if there is any questions or comments, we have the card from Heather or from Lauren to give to the community so they can call us back and ask us the question or ask for information.
I can.
So, but we can't go to the building and, yeah.
I can
We don't
say
put
I'll
anything in the
confirm.
mailboxes, so.
Specific to door to door, it's often when there's like a direct, like if we're doing water meter switch overs. So that house or that property is going to use water for 2 hours while the work takes place. Or there's another task that they are moving a utility from the back of the house to the front of the house. So that property is going to lose a service for a short period of time. But when it's, and the harmonization, which has unique, each property has a unique story.
Sure.
So those are the instances of doing door to door. We've also done door to door even on West Avenue.
For emergency situations, we've done,
Emergencies.
like if we are going to do a construction and there may be some noise or something, we provide that information and do the door hangers, yes.
As you might imagine, if we're distributing 500 door hangers, it's labor intensive.
Yeah.
So we try to keep those for the important items, or the critical items, and we rely on the other forms for other stuff.
And what would you say are your biggest, challenge points where in the sort of harmonization, the whole harmonization agreement process seems to be one, because there's no way to do that without multiple meetings and, people have to get their reference or they have to read the agreements. Where would you say the challenge points are that you think, for instance, in another project that, or First Street or any other project, that where we really need to be focusing? Where are those pressure points?
The pressure point is when we try to contact specific entities or specific individuals or buildings, and after many emails, phone calls, they just totally ignore us. And we have actually gone to boards such as yourselves or neighborhood. Do you know so and so, such and such a building? Can you keep us in contact with them? So those are the challenges that we have. The rest of the technical challenge and stuff like that, we can overcome by explaining and meeting, but when we have no response from anybody, then that holds us up and that causes the issue.
When we have a responsive human, even if they're not thrilled about it, but they just have a lot of questions, or maybe they have concerns about something and the team can compromise with them or work with them, that's better than radio silence.
I think our main pressure point, you hit on all afternoon, how do we get the message out? How do we make sure everyone hears it? How do we get the feedback from everyone in a timely manner? Because what disrupts a project is when we believe everything's in order and we're ready to go,
Right.
and an individual or a group or a neighborhood or a board says, wait a minute, we want something different. Then all of a sudden, everything we've been working for essentially stops to be higher than that.
It's a sort of a repeating story. So, and when that happens, oh, Gail, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a different question, but less about communication, or maybe it's communications related, but I'm thinking, and maybe this is a topic for future meeting, but it's about innovation. I've been working a lot with tech companies that have innovative technologies that want to get it deployed. Oftentimes they're looking for permitted sites, and I'm thinking like, oh, that's another thing that might change, right? But could also be a positive. Like, I think when you do the harmonization, like a lot of times there was innovation in there, right? Like, okay, like I went around and looked at all these different, like, oh, you guys did something I hadn't seen on the beach before. But I think I just think about this, like, can we do innovative things, or could we like maybe put in new things like clean cement, that's like clean concrete, that's like one of the things we're working on, is like having carbon-free concrete. Could we do an innovative piece there, or something else more resilience related, flooding related, and then put informational signs on it to say like, well, this is the first time we did this, and you'll see it again in other places. And
We've actually seen some very promising products. The one I'm thinking about, and I forgot the name of the product, is the concrete that's being proposed for seawalls. It's designed to boost the lifeforms of the water,
Right, and we have projects with
we
that.
actually have a couple of projects where we're implementing that. So we're looking for those opportunities, especially given our desire to be resilient and pursue that.
Sure.
A lot of the, for lack of a better term, obstacle to that is we want to make sure that when we put something in, we're not throwing it away. It's not a gamble, right? We want to put in something that we feel is beneficial, but also is going to give us the service and the life expectancy that we require of our public facility.
Innovative, but not experimental.
Sorry, not to go to another event, guys, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you very much for coming.
Madam Chair, I'm gonna excuse myself as well. I gotta go to the same event that Aaron is going to, but I'm so grateful to this committee for the thoughtful dialogue you all have had. And I know I speak for my colleagues when I say we value tremendously the feedback from the committees when we get the LTCs with your motions. I know this commission pays great attention to them, and so I'm just grateful for the feedback that you guys provide, and keep on the good work.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for coming. All right, guys.
Have a good next event.
Yeah, I'll be there. All right, guys.
no, I just to quickly respond, and I know you guys are already doing it. I think I'm thinking about it more in terms of the neighborhood and how could that.
When you say the tech startups, are you referring to like the online board? Because I know that there are startup like web services where like it's kind of like an online sounding board for the product that people can.
Yeah, I'm talking about
to
something
that.
else.
Okay.
Yeah, so I work for the county on climate tech. So we're, like, one of the things is coastal defense, but I think, like, I was speaking with somebody at Jacobs and they were like, I wonder if we could get one of these startups into one of the projects. You don't know how that would work. I don't want to upset people, you know, and make them think, oh, wait, is it working, is it not working? But I think also there's, in that moment, those companies often want visibility, or even if you bring in another partner to, like, Nature Conservancy to pay for something, they might help create something really visible. And I know that in Minneapolis, where I grew up in Minnesota, they have these water management districts that have their own funding. And part of what they do is when they fund a project, you have to do a community engagement piece that has like they have these signs. And you see them around, you're like, oh, this is a water project.
Yeah, so there are several projects that we've engaged, you mentioned the Nature Conservancy, that's one that we engaged on the, I forgot the parking spot.
Oh, no, the,
Pretty great. And they gave us a grant, I think that was through FPL, but it was a Nature Conservancy grant. And part of the requirement was community engagement, so we had a plant a tree day. And we brought in the community, we provided the trees and the community members helped us. Sorry,
Those
the mangroves, yeah,
mangroves,
this was all related to the shoreline.
right, and this is
So
gonna
we
be
had the
attorney as
community
well, right?
engagement and community involvement. They kind of returned the favor to the Nature Conservancy, they gave us the grant, and then we helped to spread the message through that project, so
Really
we're always
accomplished.
looking for opportunities.
Yeah, and I wonder if there are other
Oh, there's
ways to
fines,
keep doing it.
enrollment, is that different?
It's a little different because they don't necessarily require the engagement portion of it.
Okay.
But yeah, they're also,
Well, something to explore.
Anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we can talk about,
Yeah,
I can think about.
What do you think, I mean, if I may, I think what Gail was thinking about is how do we make it more like, policy basis perhaps, so that as we move forward with these projects, it is always
always something
always
that's on the
considered part of
checklist.
the projects,
Yeah.
which I would argue that it very much is by the nature of the procurements that we do. I mean, I think that's like the hook. It needs to be part of the procurement document as it goes out. It needs to be kept in as the project is negotiated and the actual project moves forward. So that's making sure it stays in.
Right.
But generally from us, it happens from a procurement perspective because we work as a team as these projects come together to make sure that it's all in there. If that makes sense. I mean, there's always opportunities, but it's more like we're more, I would say, it's institutionalized. I don't know if you'd agree, but.
I'm not sure that I would qualify it as a procurement process.
Right.
But
Well,
it
it's
is
one of the ways,
definitely, yeah, it is one of the ways, but it is definitely the forefront of every project we develop.
That's cool.
You mean the engagement?
More the resiliency components and the resiliency aspects that.
Yeah.
We can discuss it further. I noticed my Mickey's big and little hand says pretty close to 6 o'clock, if it's not even 6:01. So is there anything else before we?
No, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer, but
We know where you live. And we really appreciate your coming to speak with us. We would invite you back at any time, so.
Anytime you like,
come.
we're available.
We haven't worn you
Thank
out
you so
too much. Because it is really important to be able to speak with you.
we need your help as the community leaders so that when we don't have contact, we can come to you and ask for.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
information on
now you
others.
know who we are. Thank you
No, but
again.
your insight on the effectiveness of our communications, because we talk about it all the time, and we speculate as to, well, why isn't, you mentioned before the silent supporter, why isn't the silent supporter coming out?
No.
We don't know, I mean,
Right.
we can speculate, but
Right.
we don't know, and interestingly enough, a lot of our debates on a lot of these projects are, well, yes, this group wants this thing, but I'm sure there's other groups that want this other thing.
Right.
And we're trying to mediate between the vocal people that are saying, give me this, and the people that we imagine would like this other thing.
You're trying to play a side that isn't really talking to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true. Well, but
Just
we
to
can
bring
be
it
of
together.
service. That's what we're here for. Before we close the meeting, I'd like to see if there's any public comment. No, is there anybody left standing out there?
I haven't seen anyone on the line, so yeah, no attendees, and we're the only panelists.
Okay, so they all were so interested, they're just going out and engaging. Anyway, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? All right, all in favor? Yep, okay, thanks again.
So, next meeting, Madam Chair, next meeting, is in June. It's going to be June 17th at 4 p.m. And we have John Stewart, professor from FIU, to talk about the Resilience Vision course that we do with him and participate in, and he's going to come and talk about that. And Debbie Tackett will talk about the unsafe structures sort of issues happening with historic districts.
Did we also move the talk about the PIO and other things into that meeting, or?
We can do that. We can talk about.
Do that maybe third.
Just not June, the June.
Oh, you're here on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
July.
like July.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Thank you
Thank you
very much. Thank you. It was a long one. First.
Yeah, we had this conversation. Never.
Yeah.
Can I talk to you for
Yeah, I've said room like this has all.
Yeah.
Right,
That
yeah, no.
we found this good way.
Yeah, I was actually, we've been using, again, like.
Everybody kind of gets confused about like talking.
Yeah, I mean, try to like you download.
Bye, good seeing you.
Download the software, you can put blind zone, so
Is it
it
for-
only
is it
zooms
for
it to
staff?
one.
I'll see you later.
So see, like, so when we're doing the hours, I'll put it in like a room, and it's, you know, like, typical CD, so, or CD, and then I'll like.